This movie is just so freaking dull. It's very lifeless, actually. What is up, guys? Welcome back to my channel. This is OCD Movie Reviews. My name is On the Brinker, and today I'm going to review the latest comic book reimagining, and that film is The Crow. This movie is directed by Robert Sanders, and this is a reimagining slash reboot to the 90s The Crow starring Brandon Lee, and this movie stars Bill Skarsgård, FKA Twigs, and Danny Huston. Soulmates Eric Draven and Shelley Webster are brutally murdered when the demons of her dark past catch up with them. Given the chance to save his true love by sacrificing himself, Draven returns to seek bloody revenge against the killers, transversing the worlds of the living and the dead to put the wrong things right. So yes, the reboot of The Crow has finally arrived. Yes, this is a reimagining of The Crow comics. It's not a remake of the 90s Crow movie. You know, we get so many superhero reboots that try to tell their own versions of the story. So yes, The Crow is, in my opinion, one of them. But I am one of those people that loved the 90s Crow movie. That movie is one of the best stylistic, the best looking, the most badass comic book movie that I've seen. And Brandon Lee, man, what a legend. Because yes, the film is very tragic behind the scenes because Brandon Lee passed away while making the film. And it's very sad because Brandon Lee just absolutely kills it as the Crow in the original movie, and I thought the original Crow is one of the most badass comic book movies that I have ever seen, definitely in one of my favorites. So when I heard they're rebooting the Crow, I know a lot of people don't like this idea. To me though, you know, we're getting so many superhero reimaginings and reboots and stuff. I don't mind the idea as long as they do their own version and do it as right as possible to the source material. And there's so many casting choices. Like, this movie has been in development for such a long time. Jason Momoa was aimed to play, Bradley Cooper was aimed to play, but we got Bill Skarsgård playing him, and I'm not gonna lie, it's not a bad casting because I do like Bill Skarsgård as an actor. He's great as Pennywise, and I feel like he can play a dark, badass character in The Crow, so I thought he's a good casting, and I don't mind the look of The Crow from the first look. I know a lot of people hate the look of The Crow. I did not mind it, and especially in this movie, it looked pretty cool. And the trailers, you know, I wasn't too pumped for the movie. The trailers did not freaking impress me. I know this movie's not going to be as great as the 90s film, and that's why you should go into this movie not thinking. Don't expect this movie to be as good as the 90s Crow because it will make this movie much more worse for you. But I walked in from going, at least be a fun movie at least. At least be an interesting movie, and Robert Sanders directed this movie. He directed Snow White and Huntsman, which in my opinion, I find the movie underrated. But he also directed the live action Ghost in the Shell movie, which I just find kind of, in my opinion. So of course The Crow can go in two different ways. And unfortunately guys, I gotta say for The Crow, this movie is not that great, actually. This movie is really bad, actually. But it does have some positives. This movie's not atrocious. It's not one of the worst comic book movies that I have ever seen. So let's talk about the things I did kind of like about this movie. First of all, Bill Skarsgård. In my opinion, he tried in this film. Even though the script of this movie is not that good, he is fine in this movie as Eric Draven slash The Crow. He tries to put his own spin to it. He's not trying to be like Brandon Lee at all, which is great. And I just find him fine in the role. And like I said, his design in the film, in my opinion, it doesn't look that bad. When he puts on the makeup and stuff and seems like walking kicking ass, he does look cool. I like that they're trying to modernize him just a little bit, and I don't mind the design of The Crow in this movie. And the movie looks nice at least. There are some cool visual styles in this film that I feel like, yeah, it's pretty cool. It could have been in another film, but some of the visual styles in The Crow look pretty cool in this film. And the action was fine. There's actually one cool action scene that I feel like everyone's gonna say that's the best part about this movie. And it's this like opera theater action scene. That scene alone, I'm like, that saved the movie for at least 5 minutes. That scene is actually freaking awesome. Probably one of the best scenes of this movie. It's brutal, it's bloody, it's fun, and I just wish the rest of the movie could have been like that. But unfortunately, guys, yep, this movie is pretty bad, actually. This is definitely going to be my worst movies of the year somewhere because, man, this movie sucked. I feel like one of my biggest issues with The Crow is absolutely the story in general. This movie is just so freaking dull. It's very lifeless, actually. It's basically on-the-nose revenge film that you've seen in so many films before. And this movie, in a way, is trying to make it more accurate to the comic books than the Brandon Lee version. And they really tried with that, but this movie is just so dull and lifeless that I just didn't give a shit about what's happening in this movie. And the chemistry between Bill Skarsgård and FKA Twigs in the film, that's the biggest importance of the film. The romance between them two for the Crow to get revenge on. I didn't care for it. This movie spends the first 30 minutes with them too. And I just didn't buy their chemistry. Actually, the flashbacks they show in the original Crow have much more development and chemistry than this movie with the first 30 minutes. This film takes a long time to get going because it's trying to spend some time with Bill Skarsgård and FKA Twigs. And FKA Twigs by herself, this is her first movie. She is probably the best developed character in this film because now that I notice, Eric Draven doesn't have much character development in this movie. Yeah, he has some sort of flashback at the beginning of the film, but it doesn't go back into it. When we introduced to Eric Draven in the film, before he was the Crow, he's just a very bland character. There's no backstory of him. Actually, I feel like FKA Twigs felt more like the main character at parts of the film than Bill Skarsgård does in the film. And back to FKA Twigs, I thought she is fine in this movie, but just the biggest problem, their chemistry just does not work. It felt very boring, it felt very bland. It didn't make me care for Eric Draven to get revenge for her character that much in the film because their chemistry is just really not that good in the film. And yes, this film is just very, very slow to get to the main part of the film, and then when the main part starts, when he becomes the Crow, the film still gets very dull and boring. Because this film's trying to be one of those investigation, revenge films, and I just did not care because the whole chemistry, the whole romance that happens at the beginning of the film, I did not care. So why should I care about this revenge plot? When you see Eric just trying to investigate to find out who these killers are, I just find it boring. I'm just like, come on, get to something. Get to something. And then there's one action scene, that's pretty cool, and then it goes back to boring stuff. Also, the villains of this film is absolutely terrible. Danny Huston plays the main villain of this film. Of course it's going to be bland and generic because, like I said, the movie is so lifeless and dull. Of course the villains of the film is very, very dull. And Danny Huston has some sort of an ability in the film that doesn't make any fucking sense and doesn't bring it back or even explain why he has those powers. It only explained like a couple of seconds and then they didn't explore too much of it. It's just like, oh yeah, he has this ability. Yeah, that's supposed to be cool. No, it's not. It's just freaking generic. Like, we don't even get to see Eric Draven become the Crow till, like, the third act of this movie when he actually wears the makeup. And like I said, that Opera House action scene in the third act, that is when I'm like, this should have been the movie. This could have been, like, an action-packed badass movie. But then we got this, like, murder investigation movie where the Crow tries to find these guys. And that's when the movie just goes very dull, very bland, very on the nose, and very boring for me. And I just felt like Robert Sanders just hasn't, like, watched the 90s film or like read the comics all that much showing what the Crow's about. He just probably like looks at the Crow going, oh yeah, okay, that's the plot, let's just go with it, not giving like any inspiration, any passion within it. He just makes a very bland and just very generic revenge film that we've seen so many times before. And it's one of those movies that I would absolutely forget in like the next 5 minutes, and that's very disappointing. Even though it has one cool action scene and Bill Skarsgård is fine in the movie, this is definitely a very lifeless reimagining of the classic comic book and also the classic 90s film. Overall, guys, The Crow is definitely a letdown for me. This movie had some ideas, it had one cool action scene, Bill Skarsgård is fine in the role, and the movie looks nice overall, but this movie is just a very lifeless and dull revenge film that we've seen many times before. The characters aren't that interesting, the villain isn't that interesting, the chemistry between Bill Skarsgård and FKA Twigs isn't interesting at all. It's one of those on-the-nose reimaginings of the original comics, and it just felt like this movie has no passion within it. They just put on-the-nose type generic cliches that we've seen many times before. Robert Sanders, I'm sorry, he didn't direct this movie very, very well. I don't mind the idea of rebooting The Crow as long as they do it right, but honestly, I feel like they got the wrong writers, they got the wrong director for this film. It's just a movie that I was kind of expecting in a way. This movie is sort of like Hellboy that came out in 2019. It had some ideas, but it just didn't work out. Same thing here with The Crow. So I would just say, guys, just watch the 90s film. Just watch the Brandon Lee classic. That film just has way more passion and just way more edginess than this film. This film is just one of those Netflix films that you can just watch once and you just completely forget about it. It's not a terrible movie. It's not the worst comic book film that I've ever seen. It has some cool stuff, but overall, I would absolutely forget about this movie. So yes, I would say for The Crow, just go skip this movie. Just watch the 90s film, Brendan Lee film. It's a much better film than this film. Don't waste your money on this film. Just wait for Beetlejuice to come out, or just watch Touch and, other films that are completely better than this film. So guys, that is my review for The Crow. Let me know what you think of this film in the comments below. Do you like the film, hate the film, or you thought it's okay? Just let me know in the comments below. Make sure you guys follow me on social media links down below. Keep contact with me, and make sure you guys subscribe to my channel. Notify for my latest movie reviews and other movie related content. Thank you guys so much for watching, and have a nice day.